ArcelorMittal, that's a very big steel company. Why are you investing in biomanufacturing?
About 8 years ago, ArcelorMittal announced constructing the first gas fermentation plant in Europe. It's a plant for the production of ethanol. We use the waste gases produced by our steel making operations. So it's carbon monoxide and hydrogen being emitted by our manufacturing of steel that we use as a feedstock for the production of ethanol using the power of biotech. That's something completely novel for a steel maker. We have been for centuries in steel manufacturing, bringing biomass and microbes to a steel mill. That's mind-blowing for them.
I don't even know how to imagine that in the context.
Yeah, everybody was really afraid, like, oh my God. We are corporate. We need to make profit to keep the things running. So there needs to be a solid business case for the plant, and that there is. At least there was, and we'll come to that in a couple of minutes. But the entire idea is that these bacteria convert the gases that would otherwise be emitted, and we make a product out of it. A product that has a higher value than the business as usual, which is combusting these gases and emitting them. And then we have the second part of the business case, which is the avoided emissions. The CO2 you store into a molecule, we were hoping to be able to deduct it from our overall carbon balance of the plant.
So when you say there was a business case when looking at emissions, were you taking into account the taxes, the carbon dioxide tax?
Yeah. So the ETS system, which is set up in Europe, was for us crucial. ArcelorMittal Ghent, so the plant I'm working in, is a 5 million ton steel plant, and we are emitting 9 million tons of CO2 yearly, which is 7 to 8% of the Belgium's emissions of CO2. So we are the biggest industrial emitter in Belgium, and our free allocations, which is the rights to emit CO2, are in a rapid decline. So by 2023, we will have no free allocations. We will have to pay for every gram of CO2 we emit. Current CO2 prices are like 75 euro per ton. Multiply that with 9 million tons of CO2. You can do the maths yourself. It's a few hundred million euros that we need to pay. So we are in need for technologies that are reducing our emissions or doing something with the emissions. And that's where carbon capture utilization comes into the picture. Right? It's capturing the gases and utilize them to make fuels, chemicals, or whatever else. And that's where Steelanol, which is the name of the project, comes in. We have the emissions, we transform them with biotechnology, and we make some valuable outputs.
That's very exciting. But when you say there was a business case, are you implying there is no longer?
Yeah, indeed. We are currently struggling with regulative frameworks. Today, we have a European market for ethanol, which is fully driven by European regulation under the Renewable Energy Directive, which sets targets for biofuels in the transport sector. And to enter that market, you need to get the right stamps, the right certificate, the right labels. And there are actually two labels where you can enter the market. It's either being biofuel, or recycled carbon fuel. And depending on the color of the carbon you are building into your molecule, you can be either green or recycled. How it works, we have a blast furnace, which is the central reactor in a steel mill, which is typically fed with coal. That's how steel is made. So you chemically reduce iron ore with coal, carbon, capturing the oxygen from the iron ore and leaving carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. The gases emitted are fossil, and thus you can never get bioethanol produced from fossil inputs. So that's why we said, okay, let's shift a part of the fossil inputs from fossil to green, to waste streams. So we are currently bringing in all the wood collected in the recycling bins of Belgium to the steel mill. We grind it and we blend it with the fossil coal.
Wood.
Wood.
So the lignin, or what
everything that's thrown away,
else.
furniture, pieces of construction wood that are ending up in the recycling depots of Belgium. So there's a fraction green, a fraction fossil, and thus the gases coming out of the blast furnace have that same distribution, green and fossil. Some of the gas is being used by Steelanol to make ethanol, and the green carbon we can allocate to biofuel, bioethanol, the non-green part to recycled carbon.
Does this happen with the mass balance approach?
Well, that's where we were hoping for. Europe now changed regulations, and now it's a different calculation method. And thus, only a small fraction of the ethanol produced can be labeled as bioethanol. And thus, we can't enter the market. We have a product coming out of the plant that can't be sold to the main ethanol-consuming markets, being the transport sector. And then we have the second category, recycled carbon fuel. And there you don't have to start with green carbon, with biogenic carbon, but you can start with fossil inputs. But you need to show that your product has achieved 70% CO2 emission reduction over its life cycle compared to the fossil fuel comparator. And today we don't meet that 70%. Because we are penalized with the emissions from the electricity we don't produce anymore.
So a lot of contradictions actually in the regulation, right?
Indeed.
Because on one hand, you're being penalized for the emissions, and let's be honest, that's good because corporates are supposed to find a way, right, to reduce their pollution. On the other hand, you're not able to then actually commercialize, right? So if we look past for now the regulatory barrier that you were encountering, what would you say have been the factors that have been crucial for the success of getting this far?
Everything has started with a solid business case. With that idea in mind, we secured the financing. The ArcelorMittal group said, great, we want to support you guys in Ghent. So we started designing, which was very challenging. We were really the first one taking the technology from TRL 6.7 and building an industrial plant. Think about an industrial facility, chemical plant, 64,000 ton, couple of 100 square meters of surface area. Now, our fermenters, we have 4 of them, are 550 cubic meters big. It took us 5 years to design. 3 years of construction, 2 years of commissioning to get everything operational. And then in the autumn of 2020, we had the first, what we call hot commissioning run, which means we had the bugs being introduced, the gas being sparged, and the first ethanol being produced. 2024 was all about bioethanol. It was really getting the technology to its full potential. We struggled a lot. I need to be honest about that. We were hoping to make some big steps in our production, in our output, and it was not as easy as we thought. So we encountered many technical issues which come along with technology that is brand new.
Sure, and bio-based.
Yeah,
right?
It's bio-based. So you have always this aspect of biological unpredictability and reproducibility becomes issue. Look, we know how to make steel, and even there, starting up a new installation is always challenging. Here it's embracing technology that you actually don't fully understand. Nobody else has ever built at that scale. It has been a learning trajectory from the early start until now. So we are now in 2025. We produced a couple of 1,000 tons of ethanol, and still we learn every day.
You mentioned in the beginning that you're looking forward to finding some startups that have relevant technology to potentially support your project. What advice do you have to startups that want to get involved with a corporate like ArcelorMittal as a technology partner or even as a scaling partner?
I can only advise them to talk to corporates, listen to their needs. We are, for example, quite open to welcome pilots or demo facilities to validate the technology on an industrial site. You can't expect a corporate to pay for R&D that is non-core to its
core business.
To its core business. The startup needs to take its responsibility to deliver technology that is fitting into the tender or into the value chain.
So this platform is meant to bring together, all of the stakeholders of the entrepreneurship ecosystem around bio-based innovation. Is there a message you would like to give to the people of this ecosystem?
Keep up the good work. I think it's a very inspiring scene. Try to, as soon as possible, reach out to industry and check with them what their real needs are. I often see startups promoting something where the industry isn't waiting for. And so always check with your main industrial stakeholders what they actually need. Really listen to them. I'm following up the CO2 conversion field quite well. Knock on the door of the corporates. Is this something
we
can test? We are interested in. But always, don't expect a steel mill to do crazy stuff that's not fitting into our roadmap. So please, all these startups, check the roadmaps and see where it could fit into.